Once you go over the bridge, when you're going up the Post Road, you're in that part of Mamaroneck Village that lies actually in the town of Rye.
Yes.
But that we all live in the town of Mamaroneck. I mean, so often at election time, people say to me, I don't think I can vote in this election. And I have to remind them, yes, you can. Could you tell us something else about your work experience, besides either before, in addition?
I'll start at the beginning. After I graduated from law school, I worked at a law firm in Manhattan, Sullivan and Cromwell, doing commercial litigation. I left there after 2.5 years and went to the Legal Aid Society in Manhattan. At the Legal Aid Society, I mainly represented children and young people in abuse and neglect cases, adoption proceedings, and juvenile delinquency proceedings. I also, when needed, represented families in landlord-tenant court. So my experience at the Legal Aid Society really covers a lot of the areas of law that we cover in town court. Criminal law, family law, because I often am called upon to, and I'm also requested to enter orders of protection in criminal cases or family offense cases. So I covered, at Legal Aid, I covered criminal law, family law, as well as landlord-tenant law. Then, after my husband and I had 3 children and moved here to Westchester, I became an impartial hearing officer in special education cases. An impartial hearing officer is a kind of judge, and what I do is adjudicate proceedings involving special education. So if either a family is concerned about the special education services that the school district is providing, or a school district wants to provide certain services that perhaps the parents are objecting to, either the school districts or the parents can request a hearing. I conduct that hearing. In conducting that hearing, I listen to the testimony and evidence of both sides, consider all viewpoints, apply the law. The law I happen to be applying, the laws I am applying in these cases are the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, more commonly known as the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I apply the law and I formulate an educational plan that's appropriate for that child. Out of that work, it's really made me sensitive to the needs of families. In our court, I realize many young people appear in our court. Working as an impartial hearing officer, as well as at the Legal Aid Society, has made me realize the importance of having families involved when young people are in court.
Right.
In addition, everyone...
Are you doing that now?
Yes, I'm still an impartial hearing officer.
Because obviously the town justice is a part-time position.
It's a part-time job, and the hearing officer job, as a hearing officer, I'm certified by the New York State Department of Education, and individual school districts call upon me when they need me. On occasion, I'm also called upon by the New York State Banking Department to adjudicate cases involving mortgage brokers and mortgage bankers.
So you have a varied and wide range of activities that you engage in when you're not a sitting town justice, right? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you did in the community with that had nothing to do with being a town justice, because I know you've done a lot.
Well, as soon as we moved here, I became involved in the PTA at my children's school. When we moved here, they were young, they were at Mamaroneck Avenue School, and my neighbor across the street happened to be PTA president at the time.
Always dangerous.
So that was dangerous. So she said something, something innocent like, "Oh, can you give us a hand?" "Oh, sure, yeah, I'd like to be involved." Well, it was all over then. So I did many different committee jobs, and I eventually became PTA co-president at Mamaroneck Avenue School. And that was a very interesting job. It enabled me to really get to know the issues facing families in our community. And really, I felt it was my obligation to see that every child at the school was getting the education they deserved. And it was really a fascinating time and very challenging doing that job. Of course, my kids eventually graduated. I still have one there. Now I have kids in all 3 schools, the high school and the middle school. So after being PTA president at Mamaroneck Avenue, I got involved in the Hummocks PTA. I was a vice president there. And eventually I became one of the vice presidents at the high school PTSA. And I'm finishing out my final term on the high school PTSA executive board.
Can you just tell me what you think the qualities of a good judge are?
Let me just backtrack a moment. I forgot to mention that I've held 1 elected position in my life. Before I'm now town judge. I was on the Mamaroneck Library Board for a few years at a time that the library was really growing in terms of usage. And we really had to face that challenge of how to address the needs of our community and our incredible increase in the demand for our services.
Right, and the library in Mamaroneck has a slightly different structure from the library in Larchmont.
Yes.
So I interrupted you. No, I just was curious. I have two questions left. Okay. One is what you think the qualities that make a good town justice are?
There are really two sets of almost competing qualities that I've found that I've learned, something I've learned over the past 9 months, and it came out much more as a town justice than a hearing officer. Because of the necessary formalities of proceedings in town court. Right. On the one hand, you have to be a good listener and have the patience to listen and show that the litigants appearing before you, that you are patient and are listening to them. But on the other hand, at the same time, you have to be firm, be decisive, make fair decisions, and apply the law fairly and impartially in each case that comes before me.
In closing, I'd like to say, why should you continue as our town justice?
I'm qualified. I hope I've explained my qualifications
well I think you've done a good job.
I'm experienced, not only as having been the sitting town justice for since January, so I'm experienced not only in this job as the incumbent, but I'm also an experienced judicial officer as a result of my work with the New York State Department of Education and the New York State Banking Department. My legal experience also covers the range of issues that we deal with in this court. If there's one thing I've learned here, it's that this town court deserves a qualified, experienced, and impartial judge. I was not appointed to this job. I was appointed to this job, I believe, based upon my qualifications. Right. I haven't been involved in politics in the town or in either village. And I believe I got this appointment and I hope because I was a qualified applicant. So I hope the voters recognize that. I've felt a lot of support within the community in my role as town justice. So I hope the voters come out on November 4th and support me.
Thank you very much, Judge Brescia.
Thank you.
I'm joined now by my fellow Democratic trustee, Ann McAndrews. Hi, Ann. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good. It's Monday morning after the Larchmont Fine Arts Show. I want to tell everyone what a wonderful success it was. I particularly want to thank the people who were involved in it, Palma Davis and Karen Gersberg, who were the chairs, and they were ably assisted by Neely Ashiri, who is the chairman of the Committee on the Arts. This was done under their able aegis. And Emily Hoffner and Priscilla Warner and all the fellows from the DPW and the police department who were out there helping. And I particularly want to say what a wonderful treat it was to have it, because it had been canceled on the weekend of the 13th and 14th, and they quickly had to reschedule all of the artists, all of the arrangements, and they really worked very hard. And it was a wonderful success, and Ann and I both have pieces of art on our walls to show how much we enjoyed it.
We really supported
the
art show.
Right.
I'd just like to continue in the kudos to the Village of Larchmont staff for two recent events. We just mentioned one of them, which was I guess we didn't, but we were very concerned about rescheduling the art fair from the 13th to this past weekend because of Hurricane Isabel. Well, because of Hurricane Isabel and because also of the blackout that the whole Northeast suffered, our village staff was really at work, at their post, and did a tremendous job in keeping this village going, especially all the sanitation systems and the stormwater systems. And when there weren't street lights, there were police stationed at the corners. And it's really terrific when after an emergency, you are able not to say, hey, you didn't do your job, give out blame, but rather say a deep, heartfelt thanks to our village staff. And they just do a terrific job all the time. The theme of what we're going to discuss is infrastructure, believe it or not. Vast majority of us are homeowners, and we have to take care of our homes, often in unexpected ways, things that happen. As trustees of the Village of Larchmont, we have what lawyers call the highest duty of care to the village and its assets. And we're going to mention a few right now that the village board is really actively involved with. I'm going to give you 5 of them, and then we'll go back. And if we don't get to all of them, well,
we'll do it
they're
the next
all
time.
Important. Our streetscape, sidewalks, lights, benches, that kind of thing. Flint Park, the jewel in the crown. The SSO project, which has gone from Flint Park down to a pump station at the end of Willow Avenue. You see, these all come together. They all have to do with water, it seems. And stormwater, the stuff that comes down from the sky and runs down the street and occasionally freezes. And lastly, something not exactly involved with everything I've said so far, but that's the train station, and that we are awaiting the results of bid proposals that went out. We should get them in October, and from then we can tell the community how we're going to go ahead.
And actually, it's not we; it's really Metro North.
How we are going to go ahead
we and Metro North.
The universal we. In that we're doing this in conjunction, obviously, with Metro North, but also with the I-95. That's the town of Mamaroneck, and all the bits and pieces that come in. So we'll just take care of that first and tell you that we are awaiting the results of the bids. Let's go back to streetscape, something that we're really working hard. Is the sample of the street light up? Do you know?
You know, it was not up as of the weekend, but I believe it's here, and I believe the people in the DPW are going to put it up. Take a look on Larchmont Avenue near the corner of Gilder Street. At the corner. And take a look at starting, I would say, tomorrow or the next day, take a look and see if the lights are up.
And it's a sample of a street light. It's actually going to come in 2 types. I believe we have both types of samples, a pedestrian light and then a street light. Pedestrian light is obviously next to the sidewalk, and the purpose is to light the sidewalk, and the other one is obviously
and it is part of our streetscape, which we hope also to have start to go out for bid, certainly by the winter, so we can be in the ground by next year, by spring.
This particular street area is the Boston Post Road area. We've gotten 2 different types of grants, and we're putting them together. Roughly speaking, it's Boston Post Road from the cemetery to the post office, and then going up to Larchmont and Chatsworth Avenue as far as Addison Street. That's roughly the area. We've been doing an awful lot on Palmer Avenue end of town as well, by putting in more trees and improving the streetscape there as well. But that is phase 2 of this whole project. We had mentioned the SSO project. That is, we hope, finishing up. What are they finishing up? There is a pump house to be built, and you and I were looking at samples of stone to match the tennis house and the playhouse. That is yet to be constructed, but it's going to be way in the back of Flint Park. The most important thing, the recent part of the SSO project that involves a great deal of interest on the part of some of our residents, is the repaving of the streets, specifically Shore and Flint Avenue. We're involved in negotiation.
We're working with the county on getting those finished before the winter sets in.
As soon as possible. Right. But the SSO went through Flint Park, and that gets us into, as I call it, the jewel in our crown. Did you know that Flint Park was originally a series of small islands that was filled? Gee, do you think we could
I don't think we could do that
today?
I don't think
we probably couldn't, but now that we have it, we're going to try to keep it in the best possible shape and improve it. There has been a plan that's working through many committees on improving the playing field. The environmentalists and the different environmental committees in the town and the village have been involved as well. And with a lot of tinkering and a lot of putting our heads together, we were able to get that leaf area in the back that all of us know that there's something back there. And very rarely do we go back there. But if you do, you'll be absolutely amazed to find that you're actually on the water. Well, you're on the water twice a day, I guess. It's a tidal flat, a tidal area that often
doesn't have much water.
Doesn't have much water for most of the day. However, if you move what we call that leaf composting area forward, we've actually been able to increase what we call the environmental area that's on the water.
And still get in all those playing fields that were, several of the playing fields that we're trying to improve.
And get a turnaround in front of the yet-to-be-constructed pump house. As you can imagine, we're dealing with many pieces of a puzzle and putting it together. So we have the environmental area, we have the playing fields, and then we have the playground. I've been told by the Flint Park Conservancy and a playground committee that they will be coming before our board in October with a plan that is a little more finalized than the initial draft plans we saw. But be prepared. Playgrounds are extremely
costly,
surprisingly expensive, and the whole community is going to have to come together. As I yell over this truck, the whole community is going to have to come together for public and private cooperation on fundraising. Back to our old friend, the stormwater. Stormwater. We may be having some rain pretty soon, it seems. And as you recollect from all our prior discussions, there's been a great deal of concern because part of the SSO project is taking rainwater out of the sanitation system. Every time it rains, every time it pours, we shouldn't have overflows of our sanitation system. So we've been subtracting the stormwater from the sanitation system, but we haven't been subtracting the stormwater. It still comes down, please God. We don't have terrible droughts, and it has to go somewhere. And the somewhere is being even further complicated because we've had more building in the community. We've had more driveways. We've had houses being bumped out, all of which takes up the ground in which it seeps. So, if you see people walking up and down your street, looking at your curbs, looking at where your sump pumps come out, looking at where your roof leaders come out onto the street, do not be alarmed. This is all part of a very real effort that the village is undergoing to take care of what we call
dry weather flow.
That's a very fancy term for when it comes out onto the curb and it ices, we're in deep trouble.
Or it just runs down the street.
It ices, particularly in the winter. We can take the running down during the street, in the summer. It ain't great. But when it freezes in the winter, it causes a severe safety issue. And what the village has been doing as a stopgap has been putting a lot of salt on top. And that has created its own set of problems.
But you can see from what Ann has just been discussing very quickly that there are many, many issues that the board is dealing with all the time, and really very serious issues which many homeowners are not even aware. You know, you're happy if your garbage is picked up and the village is safe, but we are working very hard to keep improving things, and as more and more regulations come down, there are more and more things that we are also required to do. Thank you for watching in Larchmont Village.
Come to a village board meeting. Come to the actual meeting and participate in the discussion. I think you'd be very intrigued in how the process works in the room. But you can still watch it on television. Thank you.